Hello everybody and welcome to Library of a Silver Saint, where we talk all things books. My name is Ashley. Thank you so much for watching today, for joining me today. I hope you are doing well. I'm really excited about today's video and also a little bit nervous. I have decided to do a bit of a series review / wrap up of a series that I only recently completed, the Red Rising saga by Pierce Brown. Now, I'm only talking about the first 3 books in this saga because there are sort of 2 separate, not separate, but there are 2 sort of series that are seen as a first sort of triplet. What's it called? Trilogy. Trilogy, that's the word I was looking for. Triplet. Oh my goodness. Hot beverage of choice, guys. I obviously need mine today. Sip, sip. Apparently I need it. Triplet. Triplet. Wow. Shows how much I need my cup of tea. If you haven't got a beverage, please go and get one. Get yourself cozy. Now, the Red Rising saga by Pierce Brown is, my goodness, it is everywhere at the moment. It is the absolute top end of sci-fi books at the moment, and it's everywhere for good reason. Now, this was a series that I was dying to get to. It is not split up, but it's kind of made up of 2 series. Now, they are kind of linked, but there is a time difference in between. So the trilogy that I'm going to be talking about today is the first 3 books. So we've got Red Rising, Golden Sun, and Morning Star. Those are kind of the first 3. And then I believe the next part of the series, I believe, is a quadrilogy. Is that even the right word? There's 4. Currently 3 are released, and the 4th one we actually don't have a release date for yet. I'm not sure if it's coming out this year or next year. I'm guessing with there being no current date, then it's most likely going to be next year. But there is going to be another one. Because I've not got to those 4 yet, I don't know so much about them. All I know is that those 4 are set after the sequence events that happens in the 3 books that I have currently read. I think it's important to say that I'm probably quite late to the party here. I mean, it's not surprising, really, is it? I'm usually late to the party with these things, but I'm very late to the party with this one. Red Rising has been a very popular series for a very long time. I kept seeing it recommended over and over again by so many people. I saw it everywhere. I saw it everywhere, and it had been on my list, and I'd got the copy of the book. I'd had it on my physical TBR for so long and just wasn't getting round to it. It just seemed, I think this is around the time where I was reading Empire of the Vampire and Nevernight, and also things like The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Around that time, I was reading those, and this was where I was trying to figure out where Red Rising would sort of slot in. I got to it, and my goodness, I feel like I'm going to cause some controversy here, but overall, this is a really positive space. When I heard Red Rising being described, I heard particularly the first book being described as Star Wars meets Hunger Games, or Hunger Games in a Star Wars space world. And that just, I mean, I was intrigued immediately because the concept of the Hunger Games is just one of the most incredible concepts in the world. It's such an incredible series, such a powerful series, a series that was so important to me during my sort of teenage years. You know, I think for a lot of people around my age or slightly younger or slightly older, the Hunger Games was a huge series for us in terms of reading. And, you know, really solidified my love for reading. You know, Suzanne Collins really set the blueprint. And then Star Wars, I've always been a huge fan of Star Wars. I grew up watching it with family as a child and just loved it. So the concept of Red Rising was just, oh. Okay, so I think the best thing to do is to start by just giving a general overview of the concept, sort of summary of Red Rising. Now, I'm only going to really talk about the summary of, like, a general overview mainly of book 1, because I don't want to sort of go too far and get into what might be deemed as spoiler territory. But to be honest, I'm so late to the party, I would imagine most people have read it. But if you haven't read Red Rising, then I will just give a brief overview. In Red Rising, we're in a science fiction world, so we are in space, and this is set on Mars, and we have our protagonist, who is Darrow. He's quite a young man. I think he's about maybe 16 in the first book, and he is essentially called a helldiver. So what he does is, for a living, he mines on the surface of Mars to mine a resource which essentially in this society they have been told is incredibly important because it is going to help support society by helping in the terraforming of Mars, so making Mars livable, breathable, and a suitable environment for humans to live and sustain life on. Every day, Darrow essentially works as a hell diver. He mines in sort of the crust of Mars' surface to find this resource called helium-3, and this is used in the terraforming of Mars to make Mars inhabitable for humans. It's used in the process of making Mars' surface and the air breathable for humans. Darrow is really proud of his job. This is a very risky job, and he feels very sort of proud in his role. As I say, this job is seen as having a huge risk, but it's seen as being sort of for the greater good of society, the benefit of society. And so it's deemed by Darrow and those around him that work with him, family and friends, that this role is incredibly important to the sustainability and future of human life. And so there's a lot of pride involved in this role. Darrow and his friends and family are essentially helping society to prosper and build on itself. In this world, society is essentially, all humans are split into classes in society. So you've kind of got a bit of a hierarchy here, and the hierarchy is based on a coloured system. So at the bottom you have got the reds, which is what Darrow and his family and friends are, and then you have varying colours in between, and then at the top you've got your golds. So they are deemed to be highest in society, incredibly wealthy, incredibly powerful, of influence, that sort of thing. Government, politicians, and then you have other colours in between, like I said. I think you've got greys as well. In this world, greys are like police, so they have some influence and some power as well. But the reds, Darrow's colour, are right at the bottom of the pile. It's time. I'm losing my voice already. I've been talking for too long. If at any point you hear any snoring during this, by the way, it's Ernie. He is fast asleep on the floor next to me, curled up in a blanket. I mean, does anybody else have like an unemployed pet that just lives the best life? Because Ernie does. There is a huge catastrophe, a very emotional catastrophe that strikes for Darrow. He goes through lots of experiences, lots of things happen. As I say, this huge catastrophe. Darrow finds out that society is all a bit of a lie, really, and that there's been this huge conspiracy in play by the Golds, who are claiming that the Reds are doing the job to make, Mars breathable, to make it livable, but actually people are living on Mars quite comfortably. The terraforming is already happening. People are living really comfortably there. Society is already carrying on essentially without him, without the Reds. And they discover that there's been this huge conspiracy, essentially that they are slaves. When Darrow uncovers this conspiracy and goes through this awful catastrophe, he essentially seeks vengeance and is given the opportunity to get his vengeance, find his vengeance by going through a process where he is able to essentially disguise himself as a Gold and infiltrate into Gold society. Similarly to Star Wars here, he sort of essentially joins a rebel group, goes through a bit of a transformation, and is then mimics a Gold. We then enter the sort of Hunger Games aspect of this book, where Darrow enters something known as the Institution, and there is a competition at the Institution where people go in, members of Gold Society enter this competition in the Institution to kind of prove their worth, prove their strengths, prove themselves to the rest of Gold Society. And essentially whoever comes out on top, or whoever succeeds really well in this series of competitions, those people are identified as sort of future members of like Gold Parliament, the Gold government. Their sort of success in this games-esque scenario will impact their sort of future in Gold society. All of them are separated into various houses, and they enter this sort of competition until, as I say, various ones sort of prove themselves well. It's not necessarily like a last one standing, battle to the death scenario. The concept for this series is just insane. Like, if I was able to do that any justice, which I probably wasn't because it was just a ramble, the concept is just incredible, and this is what really hooked me. Now, I've been a little bit afraid to come on here and talk about Red Rising because I have some controversial opinions. Now, I need to be really clear here, and Imi posted a video a few days ago where she spoke about, this should be a safe space. We should be able to talk about our bookish opinions very openly and honestly, and some things that don't just don't work for us in books. Now, I didn't not like Red Rising, but there were certain parts of Red Rising, book one. I have to be very particular and say book one that didn't work for me. Now, I think there is some comparison in this scenario to what happened when I read Jade City. Now, I'd heard amazing things about the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee. I read Jade City. It had been so hyped. So hyped. I saw it everywhere. 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Best book I've ever read. I went into Red Rising with that same kind of expectation. I'd seen it everywhere. People have been saying 5-star, best series you'll ever read, best book you'll ever read, best book one you'll ever read. And there were some parts that fell flat for me. And so I ended up being a bit underwhelmed. And I think I was really scared to give my review because I did enjoy it. It just didn't quite have the pizzazz. Wow. I said in my last video that I'm 90. I genuinely am. It's awful. Oh God, I'm so sorry. It didn't have the grit and I just didn't feel, I didn't come away from it like, oh, I love this. However, I then spoke to some other people about Red Rising who had had a very similar experience to me. But then when you carry on and read book 2, Gold Sun, and book 3, Morning Star, it'll be a game changer. And I said, right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to carry on. I do just briefly want to touch on the things that I really did like and the things that didn't work so well for me in Red Rising, book 1 specifically, just because I really feel Imi's inspired me and I want to be able to talk about these things in hopefully a place of love where we share, even if some things don't work for us. I still really enjoyed Red Rising book 1. There were just some things that didn't quite work for me. I've had to grab the cuppa because I'm getting so excitable that I can feel my throat just getting dry. Excuse me if I have to noisily slurp and sip on a cup of tea. It's still the biscuit tea. Had a huge coffee this morning. Yeah. Normally people would start with the positives, but I'm actually going to just start with the things that didn't quite work for me. And these are things that work for so many other people or that they loved. These are just things that's very personal to me. And this isn't like this was a bad book, I didn't like it. Not at all. These were just things that I was expecting to enjoy from what people had said, but then found that I didn't quite like so much. The first part is actually the Hunger Games aspect. Now, for me, I think it worked for the book. I think the competition, the trials, I think it was perfectly necessary and needed for this story in order for it to progress. I can see Pierce Brown's vision. I get it completely. I think this isn't actually what was wrong with it for me. I think actually for me this was more of a personal experience because I reread Hunger Games last year. I also read Red Rising last year. And I also read a couple of other books that also had competition style games in them. So actually, I don't think it was the book. I just think it was the time. Because I feel like I almost had like the trials competition burnout. As I say, I reread Hunger Games, incredible series, no notes. I then also read, I think, Powerless by Lauren Roberts, which has a competition game style aspect to it. I didn't really vibe with that book very much. That's a story for another day. I also read another very much loved romantasy style book, The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Again, loved by many people. However, it did have that competition style games element to it. And for me, again, I didn't understand why it didn't work for me. And I didn't really enjoy that book very much. Again, each to their own. It's so well loved. And I feel like I'm being really horrible. I think I almost got competition games burnout. I'd read quite a few books in a quite short period of time that contained that kind of arc and that kind of setting. And I think I just got a bit burnt out of it. So when I read it in Red Rising, even though I knew to expect it, I think I just got a bit burned out from it. I think I had personally overconsumed books that spoke about trials and competitions, and I think that's my own fault. But actually, in hindsight, looking back, that even though at the time I thought, oh, not this again, even though I knew it had it in it, it's my own fault. Looking back in hindsight, it works perfectly for the story. But that's with my knowledge of what happens in book 2 and 3, looking back. So, hindsight's a wonderful thing. The other thing that didn't quite work for me was that I felt you were introduced to so many characters. But in book 1, I had, apart from Darrow, in book 1, I personally didn't feel much connection to the characters. Now, this is something that, oh, sorry, the lights just changed. This is something that completely changes for me in book 2 and 3. In book 1, I wasn't a massive fan of Darrow. Now, this might just be me, but I personally found Darrow to be a bit of, what do people call them? A Mary Sue. He just seemed to be perfect at everything and seemed to get everything right. And I found him a little bit frustrating. Completely changes in book 2 and 3. And then the only other character that I really started to like in book 1 was Severo and Mustang. They were the only two that I sort of felt any connection to in book 1. But I felt that we were introduced to so many other characters, but I didn't really know if they were important or not. They felt almost a bit flitting for me. And I think this is like the games aspect of it coming through as well. But I just didn't really feel that connection to the characters in book 1. But yeah, and that's fine. Again, this is a really personal one. I sometimes found Pierce's writing a little bit uneven for me in book 1. I can't write at all, so I am nobody to judge anybody else's writing. But it had a strange style to it. I don't know how to describe it. I found it sometimes a little bit repetitive and sometimes a little bit annoying. There were some moments where I just thought, oh, I just wasn't. I found it frustrating at points. But as I say, this is all completely my opinion and how I experienced it. But also, I didn't not enjoy it. These are just some things that I was expecting to love and then didn't so much as I thought I would. But it turns out I'm not alone in this. There are other people that have a similar opinion. Forgive me. I needed to briefly talk about the things that I absolutely loved about this book. The world building. I love the world building. I thought it was excellent. The plot. I knew the plot was a good plot. It had such a good premise, and I knew what Pierce was sort of building to. I knew what he was working towards because I did know the overall concept of the 3 books. And so the plot just, I mean, regardless of how book 1, whether it had its peaks and troughs, but regardless of that, I knew the whole time the plot was just perfect. Another thing that I really loved about it was the kind of Roman-inspired nature of it. Now, I don't know how far this goes, but a lot of the names and things like that and a lot of the roles all have kind of Roman-inspired language. And I really like that. I thought it worked really well in terms of the hierarchy, which I think is why it might have been chosen. But I really like that. And it felt very, don't know, I think initially people would have thought it felt weird because it's sci-fi, but it worked. It just worked. I thought that was brilliant. I do also briefly want to mention that another bit of this that I loved was Darrow's transformation, his carving. I'm not going to go into any detail of it, but his transformation in terms of how he was able to mimic a gold to enter Gold Society, I thought that was done excellently. I thought that was brilliant. I loved it. I carried on because people had said, keep going, don't lose faith. It's going to be great. So I went and read Golden Sun. And quite frankly, for me, it felt like it was written by a different author. It felt like it was written by a different author. I'm really spilling the tea. Almost literally. It was like reading another author altogether. Golden Sun and Morning Star took Red Rising from a sort of, if we're going to give it numbers, a 3.75 to a 5. Unforgettable, one of my favourite series of all time. And that jump was huge. I can't. It was so good. I listened to books 2 and 3 because there was a graphic audio for them, and I physically read book 1. Now, I'm actually really excited to go back and reread because I do now have book 1 as a graphic audio as well. And I have to tell you, you will get just as much enjoyment out of it reading it physically, but the graphic audios, if you can get them, are insane. Insane. They are so good. Voice actors, the sound effects, just perfection. If you have the opportunity and you like audiobooks, definitely get the graphic audio. Oh, they were so good. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because I don't really want to go into spoiler territory, but at the point of Golden Sun and Morning Star, you are beyond the trials. You are past that point and you are following Darrow as he is continuing to sort of infiltrate Gold Society to work his way up so that he is able to bring it down. That's the overarching theme. That's the overarching plot. And you're following him further after the trials have taken place as he's getting deeper and deeper into Gold Society. You can really see to be fair, in book 1, the stakes were quite high, but in book 2, for me, the stakes just skyrocketed. Sorry, sci-fi pun. They just skyrocketed. The political machinations that are happening, it's so good. I didn't know who to trust. Sometimes I didn't even know if I trusted Darrow. There were people who I thought, oh, no, you're normally a good person, but now I'm questioning you. No, you're normally a bad person, but now I'm questioning you. Pierce's ability to write the different characters and give them such complex personalities and abilities and motivations, it was just unparalleled. I didn't honestly know who to trust. Some people you would trust and then they would betray you, and I'd be listening to it, and I'd be listening in the gym some days, and I'd be like, what is happening? And I'd have to rewind it and go back and be like, no. And sometimes I would stop mid-workout, put a dumbbell down, just sit and just contemplate my whole life, because Pierce would just do something that I'd be like, excuse me, Pierce, what are you doing? Or he'd like tear my heart out of my chest. I didn't think this series would do that to me, but it did. And apparently it only gets worse in the next 4 books. In Golden Sun and Morning Star, Pierce barely gives you any time to breathe. It's just one thing after another, but in the best way. I got no fatigue, because there are still those moments. There were moments where I was listening to Darrow's voice, or listening to something that he was saying, or listening to Mustang, or any of them, Severo or Victra. Oh gosh, some of these characters are insane. I love them so much. There were moments where it was so political, it was so action heavy. The most incredible action scenes, by the way. Oh my gosh. Like, again, it's like watching a movie in your head. It's just insane. There were also moments where I really sat, really listened to what the characters were saying, and I genuinely was like sort of thinking, wow, this is, some of it was almost life-changing. Like, it blew my mind, Pierce's writing. Some of the sort of, some of the things that he discusses about politics and the class system and family and friendship and the world and Mother Nature and us as humans just being tiny little specks that don't mean anything. I was having an existential crisis at the time of reading this. It put me into that. It genuinely made me question so much. It really hit me on a deep level, and I missed that completely in book 1. As I say, probably was just me. It was probably just me. Book 2 and 3 just hit me on such a deep level. Also, as I say, Pierce absolutely tore my heart from my chest. I had my jaw on the floor multiple times. I couldn't believe it. The political manoeuvring that's going on, the dynamics between characters and how they grow and change and develop. And it's not like smooth sailing. Like, it gets messy. It gets messy. But like a good mess, Book 2 and 3 were what I really wanted from the series, and I got what I wanted and more. Like, Pierce just blew my mind. I can't. It was incredible. And the transformation from book 1 just being I enjoyed it, it was good, to, oh my gosh, these are the best books I've ever read in my entire life. That transformation was just huge for me. And I'm really curious to know if I'm the only one. Maybe I'm being really mean. I am going to go back and re-listen to all 3 in preparation for then moving on to the next sort of 4 books, which I believe starts with Iron Gold. I don't know whether to physically read or wait for the graphic audios. I know that the graphic audios are currently being recorded and released, so part 1 of Iron Gold is available, but part 2 isn't yet. So I think I'm going to go back and re-listen to all 3, and I'm going to go back and re-listen to Red Rising. And I have a feeling that on reread, on re-listen, knowing everything that I know now, with hindsight, with a different mindset, I think I will rate Red Rising. In my head, I'll have such a much better time with it than I did when I initially read it. I think a lot of it for me was just time and place. I think it was like, it wasn't the book, it was me and where I was at that time. But honestly, I mean, I think I'm the only one here. But if you have not read Red Rising, please read it. It's astonishing. It's absolutely astonishing. This is going to go down in sci-fi history. It's amazing, and I can't wait to read his next sort of series. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm sorry, that was a complete ramble. I really didn't want to come across as a neggy Nelly about the first book. I feel like this is a safe space. We can talk about it. I think it just wasn't quite what I wanted, but I know for so many other people it is. And like I say, on reread or re-listen, I think my opinion of it is going to completely change. But have you read Red Rising? If you have, did you love it? And did you have a similar experience with the book 1, Red Rising, to me? Or was yours completely different? It was one of the best books that you've ever read in your life. Please let me know. Also, let me know if you've read the second part to the series. I think it's Iron Gold, Dark Age, Lightbringer, and then Red God is coming out at some point. Let me know if you're up to date with those as well, because I'd love to know your opinions. Apparently it gets darker and more emotional. Is it even possible? apparently so. But please do let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. If you enjoyed the video, hopefully, maybe a little bit. If you enjoyed the video and you'd like to join and become a firm member of the Library of a Silver Saint, then please do hit the subscribe button so that you can see more of my rambles for you. I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye.